Aloha and welcome to Maui Mana'o. I'm your host, Alan Teixeira, and today we'll be discussing Maui issues with the Maui State Senators, Senator Kalani English, Senator Ross Baker, and Senate President, Senator Shan Tsutsui. Welcome, Senators. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Aloha. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Yes.
The topic of our first question has recently been in the news. The State Department of Transportation has recently stated that the runway at Kahului Airport is in need of repairs. Can you please explain why this is necessary and how this will impact travel to and from Maui?
Well, the first thing to know is that we have to keep a safe runway in Maui, and that's paramount. That's what's happening here. The subsurface of our airport is very old. It's from the 40s, and so that's it's giving way. And so they have to shore that up or put a new subsurface in, and it's just to allow for our planes to continue coming in. So the question is, how do we repair the runway and at the same time keep air traffic flowing? So the department is working very hard to accomplish that goal, and we're working very hard to make sure that we do the repairs and we also keep the airport open.
Because that airport is really our lifeblood. We want to make sure that commerce continues, as well as island residents have an opportunity to do their air travel, and visitors can come in as well. So we want to make sure that the airport is safe, and we want the airports department to do their work as efficiently and as rapidly as possible.
And I think, with the budget woes on the federal level, one of the things that has been happening for the last several years is that the Kahului Airport runway was receiving federal dollars to do a lot of the repair and maintenance work. But recently, the Hawaii Department of Transportation has received notice from the FAA saying that it would no longer be in receipt of some of these repair and maintenance funds. So, and I think that's why it kind of spurred and stimulated this desire to try to do a complete resurfacing of the runway. And as Senator English said, the runway was built back in the 40s, and from our understanding, the runway was never designed or built to accommodate the type of heavy aircraft that currently come into Maui. It was actually built as a military runway, which is why it makes it a little different than from some of the other neighbor islands that also have one single runway.
Is there a timetable, you think, when repairs might begin, or is there a deadline or anything like that?
Well, we know, we've been briefed by the department that they're working on a plan. They're working on a timetable. They're working on funding mechanisms to do this. But the one thing that's very clear from all of us and from governor's office and others is that, we're not going to shut down the airport.
No.
So the airport will stay open, and we're going to find a way to keep the current air traffic that we have. Because it's our lifeline, as Senator Baker said, it's our cargo coming in, our food coming in, also our visitors and our inter-island workers and travelers. So what it did for me, and I'm sure for the other senators and reps as well, is that it made us really realize how dependent we are on that airport, and also then made me start thinking about, we need to make sure that in the future there's a very strong repair and maintenance program for them. They do now. They do a good program, but oftentimes we sort of get caught up in everything else, and this brought it home that, okay, they do a good job. We have to continue supporting them doing it.
And the one thing I think we want to assure everybody that's listening is the airport is safe. They're continuing to do the patching that is necessary, but we don't want the situation to deteriorate so that maybe a plane coming in, busts the landing gear or something like that, and then really creates problems. We want to be very proactive, and I appreciate that DOT wants to be proactive too, with a little prodding from the FAA to make sure that we get it on a time schedule, we have a good plan, we involve all the stakeholders, and we make sure that the runway gets repaired so that we don't have to do so many Band-Aid fixes in the future.
Understand.
And along those lines, in terms of the timeline, I think the first thing that the DOT is going to do once they complete their due diligence and have all the different options available is that we're going to have community meetings throughout Maui County to make sure that everybody understands, what the plan is and what the approach is. And I think at that time, then the DOT will have a better idea as to when possible construction would start, as well as when the total project might be completed.
Thank you, Senators. I think everyone will be happy hearing that the runway will stay open. If we can move on to our next question. Following the U.S. Census every 10 years, boundaries for legislative districts are reviewed and reapportioned. Can you please discuss some of the changes that have been made on Maui, as well as the possible rationales behind them?
Yeah. Well, I think kind of in a snapshot, there's not going to be a whole lot of change for Maui County. I think that's kind of a fortunate thing. There is a pending lawsuit. The Supreme Court is currently reviewing that lawsuit. We should know soon. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but it may be decided before then. But I think ultimately whether the Supreme Court decides that that we should count military or not count military, and whether that gives an extra senatorial seat to the Big Island or leaves it here on Oahu, I think the impact to Maui County will be somewhat minimal. And so there will be a few changes. Senator English's district will get a little larger, and he can tell you about that.
Well, right, exactly. You might see on the graphic that my district used to split Paia, and now Paia is whole, and it actually goes all the way to Haleakala Highway and comes down and includes the airport now. So Sprecklesville joins the 6th Senatorial District. And I think that's about it. I mean, that's the area that we expanded. Molokai, Lanai, Kaho'olawe remains in the district. Kula, upcountry, East Maui. But we get this whole new area. So, I'm looking forward to that. I think it actually recognizes those communities as one community. But other than that, did your district change?
Well, Representative McKelvey's part of my district, the Lahaina part, actually changed a boundary line, but there's no residents in the area. So instead of beginning at North Kihei Road after the Malaya area, it goes all the way over to, and now includes Maui Tropical Plantation, but stops just short of the Waikapu community. So unless there are buildings across from Ma'alaya, we don't have any new voters in that part.
So, as Senator Tsutsui said, our boundaries have relatively remained the same. And it's a reapportionment year, which means that everybody's up for election. So the 3 senators will be up, as well as all the House members.
Yeah, and I think what's also interesting is that when you look at Oahu, and I think a lot of the senators are really paying attention to their lines, and whether it's on this side of the street or that side of the street, and yet for the 3 of us, because we've always worked closely together, I mean, we really don't have these boundaries, or we don't see them. Senator English's or Senator Baker's constituents are my constituents, and vice versa. And so we've always had this approach that we work together as a team, and we make sure that whatever issues affect one definitely affects us too. So, yeah.
Excellent. This is next question. There are numerous improvement projects in various stages of completion throughout the County of Maui. Would you like to point out or highlight any particular projects?
Well, there's one that's just being completed. The Department of Education is going to take over probably in a short order, and that's the new cafeteria at Lahaina Luna High School. So that's a great asset for the school up there. It allows the students to all eat together, or maybe in 2 stages rather than in 4, and it can also double as a performing arts center. So that's a really exciting addition. And then of course the other school that I'm very excited to make sure it continues to move forward is the new high school in Kihei. The draft environmental impact statement has been completed. It's out for public comment. We're working very closely with the DOE as well as Westlow, our Maui Board of Ed member, to make sure that we can continue to move that project on to completion, and want to make sure it gets built as rapidly as possible, because that school impacts what we might need to do at Maui High and at Baldwin, because that's where the students from Kihei are going.
In our area, we have the Paia cafeteria, the Paia Elementary School cafeteria, which all of us worked very hard to get, and the groundbreaking happened, and they're in the process of building that. So for the first time in many years, the kids in Paia will be able to sit down at the same, in a cafeteria, and have lunches that are prepared there, because they were bringing them in by truck before, to the school.
They had to eat in shifts too.
Yeah, they're eating in shifts.
And that was all because of a fire a few years ago.
Wow.
So this is just replacing the the former cafeteria. So I think that's good news. In Central Maui, we have a new elementary school, Pu'ukukui Elementary School, which we broke ground on a couple months ago. So I think these things do a number of things, right? Obviously, one, it serves the needs of the Department of Education and for our keiki, but it also provides much needed jobs and in an attempt to try to also stimulate the economy. So we're really excited that there are a lot of these new projects that are finally coming to fruition on back home in Maui.
Well, and the governor's just announced the release of some additional repair and maintenance funds. Kamehameha Third School in Lahaina is finally getting its whole school renovation. They're starting to paint it and change out the windows. And Maui Community College, their science building is coming along quite well. And we also have some new repair items at the hospital. So there are a lot of things that are just starting to come online. And people say, well, the repair and maintenance projects aren't that big ticket item, but there's a lot of our small contractors that can hire in and bid on those projects, and it really helps our, the folks that are on the bench in some of our trades, as well as just making sure that people continue to have work.
And we have, some of the remote areas of Maui County and Hana, we have the Hana Small Boat Harbor rebuilding. They're in more than halfway through. They're almost done. And at some point, they're going to start on the pier side, which is a really big project. Some things that on Lanai, it's the school buildings that are in process of being built. God, I'm drawing a blank from Molokai. Sorry.
Aren't they also moving on that Ma'alaya Harbor
yes.
too?
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
that one is coming along quite nicely. And that's going to make such a difference when all of those renovations are done. It includes a little package sewer treatment plant for the harbor, upgrades in the pump outs, providing pump outs, upgrades in electric, as well as improving the old Sea Flight building. It's now going to be the harbor facility and actually
Wow.
make it a very, very user-friendly harbor. So it's a delight to see, and we've got a renovation going on at the Lahaina Small Boat Harbor as well. And our bypass continues to plug along, so they're making great progress with the various phases, and I think we're getting ready to start another phase, so it'll make the traffic flow much better.
Excellent. CFPs always sound like a great idea because it helps the community while offering local jobs.
And the thing is, it takes on the average about 4 to 5 years from, when we create a CIP project till the time it actually breaks ground. So the things that are breaking ground and being built now are things that we talked about 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And so, we often have to tell our constituents that it takes a while. We need a lot of time to put it in, and we need the governor to release it, then we need the contracts to be let. And once all of that is done, then the project's
Procurement,
Procurement.
bidding, yeah.
It's a long process.
And and between the three of us from Maui County, we have a lot in the pipeline coming down. It's just going to take a little time to get it there.
And we're hoping that with the economy looking a little bit better, that we'll be able to do more of the repair and maintenance things that have been backlogged, and maybe even help out some of our nonprofits with some of their important CIP.
Excellent. Thank you, Senators.